Hi, welcome back. This is Dr. Burton. We're trying to find a way to talk about critical theory and all of these issues that have come up in culture that are difficult to talk about. And it's taken me a while to find my voice to speak about these things. And I think it's partly because I'm a philosophy teacher, and that's the context in which I usually speak in the classroom. And so doing public videos becomes a little awkward because we don't have a common context. I don't know you. You may know me. I don't know. But I do think we can talk about these difficult issues from a philosophical perspective in the public sphere. I'm into public philosophy. And with this pandemic, I can't do public lectures, although, this would make a really good public lecture. So this is my alternative to a public lecture. It's just a public podcast thing, I guess. Okay, so I'm rambling. Let's get back to it. I am a philosophy teacher, and one of my students emailed me this week asking questions that ordinarily we would discuss in class, but this is online now. So I decided to make a video and a series answering these kinds of questions. Her questions were, can logic tell us about religion? Can logic tell us about politics? What about racism? Can logic tell us who to vote for? I thought these were excellent questions, and we do have a way of talking about them. And logic does have a way of settling disputes. In the logic class, we say the purpose of the logic class is to find meaning and settle disputes. And right now, out there in the culture is a gigantic dispute, right? So logic should be able to help us here. But it's scary. It's scary to talk about these things. People cancel you. I don't think I'm big enough to get canceled. I don't know. I don't even know what I would get canceled for. But to protect against that, we have common ground. So if we're going to have a discussion, and I am talking about the context of discussion, I make videos to start a conversation, to be in a conversation. I said talking is for persuasion. Maybe it's for more than that, but when I talk, it's because I want to persuade. And what do I want to persuade you of? That you should think. You should think deeply. Okay, so common ground is a way to battle our fears of discussing difficult topics. It's a way of getting in there and having some protection. So let's talk about what is common ground. Think of ground as where we stand, and we're standing at the same place. Now, just because we stand on the same ground doesn't mean we're playing with the same rules or we have the same assumptions. Remember, we talked about worldviews last time in the worldview of critical theory. We may be standing on the same ground, but assuming different things. So common ground is a way for us to come back and examine our assumptions. So right now it's popular to talk about your biases and implicit bias, but you know what? We need to really go back more deeply and look at our assumptions, our implicit assumptions. These are things we take as true. We don't even know we take them as true, and perhaps they're not true. We don't have good reason for believing them. We haven't proven it. Okay, so common ground is needed to examine our assumptions. What is common ground? It is a place for us to be in a conversation where we can always pull it back to what is more basic. So it's a way to protect and deal with the fear of saying the wrong thing. And so we need common ground. And I see philosophers out there on the internet looking for something like this. So here it is. And this is one of my hobby horses. Yes, I'm always hammering home common ground. The first piece of common ground is reason. Reason, the laws of thought. I have done a 15-part series on reason, the Retrieval Reason podcast. I tell you, that handout, that reason handout that I did a 15-part series on can get us through this whole discussion, period. Common ground, reason. Reason is the laws of thought. Okay, the law of identity says A is A. A thing is what it is. The law of non-contradiction says something cannot be both A and non-A in the same respect and at the same time. And the law of excluded middle says something is either A or non-A. And I have gone through objections to those in my podcast series. I don't want to go over it again. And if you're in my logic class, you know we've gone over it. Reason, the laws of thought is common ground. Why? Because I'm a rational being. I use these laws. You're a rational being. You use these laws. Anytime we speak, we're using words. Words express concepts. Concepts are universal. If you want to fight me on it, go back and watch my series. Write me an email and I'm happy to discuss. But reason is common ground. So reason applies to being as well as to thinking. Reason is ontological. Once you get rid of that, like Nietzsche does, there's no ground for discussion anymore because our words don't mean anything objectively. They're malleable. They mean whatever I intend them to mean. And I can't even know what you intend them to mean because I don't have your perspective. So common ground itself may be under dispute in this cultural disagreement we're having right now. But if we don't have reason, we don't have a basis for discussion because when we discuss, we use words. We're exchanging words and words are representing ideas and ideas are grasped by reason. So we need reason for common ground. The second piece needed for common ground is integrity. Integrity has to do with wholeness, a whole, not a divided. Integrity is saying one thing and doing that thing you say. It's consistency between what we say and what we do. So if you say you're committed to perspectivalism or to a post-Nietzschean philosophy, then you should live consistently with that. Now, one of the inconsistencies that comes out is you can't have your Nietzsche and your social justice too. I made a video on that. That was one of the lectures I gave at Arizona State University West Campus, maybe in 2018. You could look that video up on my YouTube channel. You can't have this view that's destructive, that is tearing down values, and also promoting values, particularly justice, social justice, that seems to be a universal value. So there's going to be conflict, saying one thing, doing another. Nobody can really know, oh, we know what justice is. So integrity says be consistent. If you profess a position, you should live consistently with that position. And I'm thinking to myself right now, that's what Nietzsche was after. He was being consistent with materialism, empiricism, and he carried it to its conclusion. And now I think what's happening with critical theory is we're seeing it being carried out culturally. So when you see the monument being taken down on your television set at night, that's consistent with a post-Nietzschean philosophy. They're having integrity. But now we want to have integrity at the basic level. So we want to see, pull it back. Are you really willing to live with the giving up of reason as ontological? So we need to know how to have integrity ourselves and how to call others to integrity. You say this, are you living consistently with that? If not, then we don't have common ground. You're just talking. Okay, the third piece for common ground is called the principle of clarity. And I've talked about this elsewhere. The principle of clarity says some things are clear to reason. The opposite is if some things are not clear, then, okay, nothing is clear. So either some things are clear or nothing is clear to reason. And if nothing is clear to reason, then there's no distinction between A and non-A. There's no true and false. There's no good and bad. There's no just and unjust. So words lose their meaning if nothing is clear, and what I'm saying right now is meaningless. But when we talk, we don't believe what we're saying is meaningless. We believe what we say is meaningful. And so the principle of clarity has to be affirmed, that some things are clear to reason. And not just that, the basic things are clear to reason. The basic things are about the existence or non-existence of God, which critical theory has an assumption about. The nature of humanity, which critical theory has a view about. And what is good and what is evil for humans. And critical theory has a view about that. So I think critical theory would have to say some things are clear, and maybe even these basic things are clear. And now we just have to have integrity and reason in examining those things. So when we say some things are clear, now we have the basic things. So the logically prior things are clear, which means the things that build also could be clear, but maybe we're arguing about things up here, like racism, but it goes back to assumptions down here. So the fourth piece of common ground is the rational presuppositional method. Rational presuppositional method means let's take it from less basic racism to more basic assumptions about reason. And there is a connection. There's a step-by-step connection to less basic beliefs that we have. So we should be able to take these assumptions back. And that's what I've been trying to do so far. Let's deal with what is more basic. Logically, prior assumptions. Do we agree on the more basic? If we don't agree here, we're definitely not going to agree here. For example, let's say one person believes in God and they have a set of values connected with that, maybe Judeo-Christian values. Another person does not believe in God. So God, no God. Humans are created in the image of God. Humans are a product of nature. And then the whole worldview develops from there. Views about racism, different views. We can pull it back and see we disagree because we disagree at this more basic level about God and humans and good and evil. That's what the principle of clarity is about. That's what the rational presuppositional method is about. Getting to what is more basic. And the more basic is clear to reason. So you can see how all of these fit together. Reason, integrity, the principle of clarity, and the rational presuppositional method. If we don't have these in place, then we can't dialogue together. We can't come to any fruitful conclusions and change together. And if we can't dialogue, then we're left with the will to power or emotional appeals, which are not logic. So you have logic and reason, or not logic and emotion and will. Right now, a lot of what's happening in the public sphere looks to me like emotion and will. And it's because we didn't hold on to reason and we don't have common ground. So I, as your fellow human being, am calling you back to reason and common ground. Okay, if we don't have common ground, then we cannot have a discussion, period. And many in the current public scene have given up on reason, and so conversation becomes impossible. What happens when critical theory critiques reason, the laws of thought itself? What are we left with? It's just a power struggle now. And I think we don't have to do that. I want to say it is okay to point out to a person that we don't have common ground and that ongoing conversation is not going to be productive, and it's okay to stop talking to that person if you don't have common ground. It's okay to say this to a person: I don't agree with that, or I don't believe that. That's okay. And you can point out differences in assumptions. You believe this, I believe this. These are different assumptions. Until we can come to some agreement on these, we don't see eye to eye. And reason is the tool for us to discuss these things and come to see eye to eye. And now, how do we come to see eye to eye? Maybe I should make another video about this. I think I want to pause and make another video where I can give you some arguments about how we should try to see eye to eye. Why this is important to keep talking. I think we have to do better. Our public discourse has to be better, and we can't do it without common ground. We need reason, integrity, principle of clarity, and rational presuppositionalism. If you think I'm wrong and there are other principles for common ground that you think are better, please send me an email and tell me about it. All right, I will pause here. We talked about common ground for discussing difficult things, particularly critical theory, and I hope that you will stay with me in this series, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.